Today we're going to have a quick talk about Monday forms. So Monday forms are really powerful in a number of ways, and they can be utilized within your workflow to initiate requests, do handovers, get external information, and they can be a great starting point to get data into where you're working in Monday, and then initiate things that need to happen alongside that workflow. So what we're going to talk about today is, I guess, the basics of forms, more about how those forms can be integrated into the different ways that you work in Monday, whether that's, handling requests or new contacts in, how that data can be utilized to trigger automation, notifications, and how it can be used as part of your workflow. So let's look at the basics of a form. So you can see here, I've got a board here called requests in. And this is really basic structure, and this could be to handle any type of request. So it could be maybe a marketing team handling creative requests from different departments within your organization. You might be handling procurement requests, it might be finance, HR, leave requests. It could be any type of request that comes into the business, whether that's internally or externally. And it's the perfect opportunity to use a Monday form. So you can see in this view here, I've got this board called requests in. At the top here, I've got a form view, so that can be easily added here by utilizing the plus sign along the top where you can add a form. And the basics of the form is that it will inherit all the columns here that are connected to this board. So when I click on that form view, you can see here I've got the columns that are related to that board. So there are some columns you can't use in a form, like the people columns. You can see they're not populated in here. You now have the capability to turn things on and off as required, change names, add descriptions, and really customize how your form's used. So we've got some other videos around the real details of forms. What we really want to learn today here is how forms can be integrated into your workflow. So one of the best ways to do this once you have the basics of the form built is by giving it a quick trial. So once I've got the structure of my board filled out with the things that I want to collect in that form, and I've got my form view, I can just quickly preview it, and I'm just going to send some data in. You can see how this is really powerful, like internally within an organization, to collect data really easily rather than email chains, Slack calls, Teams meetings, whatever it is. So let's put this in here. So once we get that request submitted, what happens is that lands in this board here. So you can see here, I've got all the information that I've collected in that form in my table view here in Monday. So you can see it's automatically populated the requester. That's done off some automation. If we look here, we've got when an item is created, assign the creator as requester. So me as the person that submitted that form, it will automatically add me into the people column. So obviously once this request comes in, the real benefits of utilizing a form is that you can take away the manual work of transitioning requests into your Monday board. So in this instance, you can see I've automatically got the request in. So what could be really powerful from a workflow initiation point of view is then looking at what other automations you could add off the back of that. And some common ones are, let's say when this item comes in, I want to notify someone this request has arrived. So you can see that I can do that here. What you can do with your custom ones is you could also build in certain conditions. So let's say a drop-down meets a condition or a status is something in that particular form. So if they've entered those fields or entered those things correctly, you can take different forks based off what's been submitted. So you might want to assign someone and notify them, or you might want to notify and assign someone else based on what those selections are. So that's where you can start to get really powerful workflow initiation off the back of the Monday forms, as opposed to manually entering data yourself. So once we've got this in, I guess the next thing where we can really extend our workflow from requests is by utilizing some other automations or features that exist in Monday. We might want to, initiate, subtasks off the back of this. Maybe in this request board, we then populate some sub-items underneath. That can be good if we want to contain our workflow within this single view. We might have a more detailed process where, let's say, for example, we move this item down to commence, and we can run some automation that could potentially initiate a new board from a template from that request. So with this automation here, you can see when an item is moved to commence, let's create a board from a template. So you can see here, I can choose the single, whatever template it is. I can identify where I want it to live, what folder. I can even choose board owners and subscribers at this point. So you can see here what we're doing is we're just speeding up the process with Monday, rather than looking at manual ways to do these things, especially internally where we handle high volumes of requests. This can be a way to get around that. So you can see here, I've now got this new request board that's been populated from a template, and then I can initiate the work from that request. So there's multiple ways you can take that request from that form and start to fork off your workflow. And it's really important to acknowledge that the form can be the basis of where your triggers and your automation can happen. So you need to think critically around what are the questions in my form. And obviously with Monday forms, you can use conditionals as well. So if you branch off with those conditionals, how can you then send your work into different directions based on what the user is submitting who's completing that form? That can take some of the legwork internally that's required to triage those requests or send them where they need to go or assign them or notify, and really simplify how you work. So when it comes to forms, they can be used for so many things. They can be used to initiate contacts. It might be a lead form that's external to your business. It could be any type of form, whether it's a checklist to sign things off. It might be a register check. There's really endless ways that you could utilize a form to initiate it into your organization, utilizing Monday boards. So once you've got that form established, you can then think about, well, once a form comes in and it's submitted, how can you then take that data and extend it out into other parts of your organization and your workflows? So a really good example is, let's say we have a contact that comes in from a form. So let's look at this form here that we've got. And let's say we fill in the data here. And it lands in our board. So we're able to utilize this data here and then extend it throughout into our workflow. So assuming those questions are on the form and that gets submitted, that can land in this table here. And this might be a contact of someone that is coming into the business as a lead. This might be a request related to something else. It doesn't necessarily have to be a contact. What we're trying to understand is here, once this request comes into your business through a Monday form, you have kind of endless ways that you can then utilize that information. So let's say this contact comes in, but we need to connect it to some activities that we're doing for that particular client. So it can be mirrored through a contact field here. So let's say we've got a board where we're working on for different things for different clients. We can then connect through that contact and then start to use that data throughout those workflow boards, whether we need to reference, whether it's phone numbers, or it might be statuses on that particular client. It might be things that we want to trigger from that mirrored data. We could run automation off that mirroring to really simplify the data that's coming in through that form and then extending it out into our workflows. So in this instance, once the data comes in through a form, we want to take that information that's been submitted, we want to align it to activities that we're doing through mirroring. And that's where it can become really powerful, in addition to the automation that we can use off the back of that request. So I think forms are really powerful in Monday. They can do a variety of things when it comes to collecting data, but the real power, once you have a form established, is how you can use that data to then initiate and simplify your workflows in Monday. So you need to think critically about your entry points. Going back, we've looked at getting requests in, which could be any type of request into the business, by utilizing a Monday form. how that form entry can be used from an automation perspective to triage what things need to happen next. And that's really taken away those manual touch points. And we looked at some quick automations that we could use here, whether it's creating a board from a template, assigning a creator as a requester, or looking at what are the selections here that have been made when it comes to the answers to these questions, and then how that can trigger different notifications or different movements to different groups or boards to take your workflow to the next level. Once we've got our request flows coming in and then connecting to our different workflows in our business, we can then look at how do we take central repositories of data and information that's come through, whether that's through a form or it's manual, and then how can we extend that out in our workflow boards. When we look at all the tasks that are getting executed, how do we use mirroring to really take advantage of the data that we've collected up front, whether that's from multiple locations, and how do we triage that through into our workflows and make sure that any things that we're working on, the data that we want is connected all the time. So hopefully this has given you a bit of insight into how forms can work, how they can be really useful when connected through to your entire organization and how you use Monday. So forms, are easy to start using. You can do it either connected to a board, or you can do it in your workspace by adding a form. Conditionals are great, as also if you're building out complex forms that need to be submitted based on what people want to see. And I think really taking advantage of the workflow functionality that comes from having an inbuilt form request in Monday is where it becomes really powerful. So hopefully you can take advantage of leveraging requests and taking automation to that next level to really supercharge how you're working.